Hello and welcome to Best Sips Worldwide. I'm your drinking companion, Susan Schwartz, an American travel writer living in London. Thanks to my mother's love of martinis, the first words I spoke were shaken, not stirred, and I've been obsessed by the history of cocktails ever since. Through the years, I've been lucky enough to sip some of the best made by the best. Hear that sound? It's time to cozy up to the bar and let me introduce you to the movers and shakers of the world's most famous watering holes. A few weeks ago, I was invited to visit the Seychelles for their annual International Carnival. Having never been there before, I had no idea what their drink of choice might be. So I literally Googled Seychelles Cocktails. To my surprise, I found that a Mr. Flavien Joubert had written a book with that exact title. When he agreed to meet me for a chat, I had no idea that we had a common link, and that was Cyprus. My personal drinking partner for the last 10 years has been a Cypriot, so I know the country and its history quite well. How he got from a refugee camp in Nicosia back to slinging cocktails is one incredible story.
When I was 15 years old, I was in the secondary school here in the Seychelles, doing all my academic subjects. My dad, who was an army officer at that time, and my mum, who was working in Saudi Arabia, they were never satisfied with the results that we used to bring home from school. So every time we used to bring our reports from school, my dad and my mum used to actually tell us, this is not good enough, this is not good enough, this is not good enough. So one day, I was reading the newspaper, and I saw that Cyprus, the government of Cyprus, were offering courses for young students from the Seychelles, because President Makarios was actually exiled here in the Seychelles. I think it was...
So he was already here, right?
No, he was here, but of course he had left,
Okay, right.
And I think in return, he just wanted to give something
right.
In return. So there were 3 scholarships, to study at the Hotel and Tourism School in Nicosia, in Cyprus.
Right.
So I didn't tell my mum and my dad anything, because I wanted to show them that I was good. You see? So I applied for the scholarships, and I went for the interview, and I was accepted. It was only when I was accepted that I told my mum and my dad that I was going to leave Seychelles very soon at the age of 16 years old.
Were they just, I mean, it's from one island to literally across the world.
Exactly,
at
that's
15.
right. That's right.
15,
well, 15 going to 16,
yes.
That's right, yeah. So my mum and my dad actually realized that, but this guy is good after all, So because we are 7 in the family, so we all got together and said, but how did you do it? How did you do it? I said, honestly, I don't know. But I applied and I went for the interview. And as far as I'm concerned, there were 250 students who applied, only for 3 scholarships. So I got in.
It was meant to be.
Exactly. So I left Seychelles in my first long trousers. I had never worn a long trouser in my life before I left Seychelles.
Did you think the weather was going to be exactly the same? You thought island?
No, actually, what I did, because at that time there was no internet.
Right.
So I went to the library, of course, and I read a lot about Cyprus, about Greece, Turkey, and all the surrounding countries. So I knew exactly what I was going to find when I get to Cyprus. So what happened during those time? When you leave home, the whole village comes to the airport with you.
Where were you living here? Were you in Victoria?
I was living in
Montfleury,
Montfleury, which is next to Victoria.
Okay.
So when I left Seychelles, I think there were about 50 to 60 people at the airport to see me off.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And because this was a trend in the old days, because I'm the boy from the village being accepted for an overseas scholarship, And during those days, it was not a question of you get the scholarship because you go for the interview, like I said,
Right.
So, but anyway, I went to Cyprus. When I arrived in Cyprus, it was in a boarding school in Nicosia, and
do you remember the name of it?
It was Nicosia Hotel and Tourism.
Okay.
Hotel and Tourism Institute in Nicosia.
Does it still exist? Do you know?
It must be. Yeah, it must be. Yeah, it must be. And when I arrived there, then they told me it is a boarding school, beautiful, very clean, luxurious, and we had to wear a suit every day. So they gave me a couple of suits every day. And I felt so proud because you could not go for breakfast or lunch or dinner because there was a restaurant. And all the students used to stay at the school and go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the restaurant and being served, like a 5-star restaurant. And you have to know how to use all the crockeries and cutlery. Yeah. But before I left Seychelles, my mom and my dad gave me a little lesson about that, so I was fine. But then the discipline as well was very, very good. It was like an army.
Obviously, everything was in English.
Yeah, everything was in English, of course. Yeah, okay. And then, but of course, there they used to teach French, German, of course, Greek as well, and Spanish. Okay, but everything, of course, was in English. And actually, after I had been there for about a year, and I was sent to Famagusta, for the internship. This is when actually the war started. There was a coup d'etat before. And then I think...
So 1974.
That's right, yeah. Right. And then, I don't know what really happened. Then we heard that the Turkish was going to invade Cyprus. And actually, in Famagusta, where I was living, there is a Turkish population in Famagusta. And Famagusta in Cyprus now is still a ghost town.
Right.
I know. So they attacked Famagusta. They attacked, I think, the other places like Kyrenia or some other places in the sea. But I was stuck in the hotel because everybody escaped.
Right.
And the British government actually they wanted to take me out as well, and I said no, I want to stay with my friends. And then what happened? My friends said, "Well, we need to escape because
were the friends both Greek and Turkish?"
Turkish, that's both. Right. So they said, "Look, we need to go. We need to find a way out."
Right.
So I said, "Well, I will come with you." Then they said, "No, you cannot come with me because we are going to be drafted in our different armies, and very soon we are going to start shooting at each other." So who are you going to shoot whom? The Turks or the Greeks? Because you are friends.
Right.
So I said, okay. I got in touch with the Red Cross because they were going around to see if there were clients still staying in the hotels. So the Red Cross got the British Army to come and pick me up. So I was taken to many refugee camps. So I stayed in different refugee camps, and there it was.
Your parents must have been so scared
because at that time
there was no email. It was
no email, no telephone, nothing. So my parents tried to the Seychelles government tried to find out where I was, but then because at that time Nicosia was also under threat, so there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of sadness, and really.
Yes, my boyfriend was really lucky. He just happened to be in Paphos when they entered into Nicosia.
Yeah.
But he still has bullet holes in his house.
Okay.
From when it happened. And his mother's family was from Kyrenia. So they had to literally leave in a day.
Exactly.
And it's so sad, and it's still divided.
That's right.
So Nicosia, last divided capital in Europe.
They are. Yeah. And in the refugee camps, it was very bad because
how long were you in a refugee camp?
I was in the refugee camp for about I think a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I had to move, we moved from refugee camp to refugee camps, and I saw a lot of people who were very sick, people who died, and I mean, of course, I think they were sick before, and there was no sanitation, there were no toilets, and there was no food.
What a lesson for such a young boy.
But the thing is, I mean, this is not a joke, but this is the truth, because in Seychelles, I come from a poor family, all right, and we are 7 in the family.
Right.
So when they ask me in Cyprus, when I was in the refugee camp, why is it that you are not suffering? I was losing weight. But I was not suffering because I grew up in Seychelles in a big poor family. So I was already a refugee in my country, So I used to tell them, I said, look, I was a refugee at home.
Right, it wasn't as if you went from rich.
That's right, yeah.
To refugee camp.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Because at home, at that time, we had a fish. We had to share it with seven kids.
Right.
So sometimes you don't have the fish.
Right.
You have only the water and the rice.
Right.
You have some people, So when I was a refugee, it made me realize that I was brought up very well.
You were trained.
I was trained.
You were trained already.
Because
to share and divide.
Psychologically, I was not affected.
Right.
Because I said, look, if I don't get some food today, so what? So what? Maybe I'll get it tomorrow. But I was losing weight, but I never lost hope, you know. And even for example, like the toilets, you know, there were no toilets, you know. There were big trenches, you know. So you just go and squat yourself, you know. Right, so you sit down, somebody comes and, oh, hi, how are you? Nice day, you know. But to me, it did not affect me because at that time in Seychelles, we were using pit latrine.
Right.
You know, these big holes. And so it all came back to me and said, but Flav, this is reality. Right. You know, but my friends, all the other people, they were really suffering. And in the refugee camp, you know, I became a star because I used to tell stories every night because there was nothing to do. No television, no radio. So I used to tell them stories about Seychelles. I used to make jokes, you know, and actually I was a star in the refugee camp, you know. And then I think this is what caught the eye of the British Army. Because one British officer came to see me one day and he said, "You are very popular. Where do you come from?" So when I start talking about Seychelles, he said, "But we didn't know." I said, "Of course you don't know because I'm part of the refugees." So he said, "Look, you will need to meet the people from the Amnesty International." So they came. They said, "But what are you doing here? You're far away from home. How did you get here?" So now I started telling them about how I got to Cyprus. So they said, "Okay, we're going to start making arrangement for you to be evacuated to London." Okay. And it took a long time, of course, you know, because they had to get all the papers. Right. Then I was put on one of these big Air Force jets, and I was taken to Brize Norton in London. And these people were very nice to me. I arrived in Brize Norton in London, and they said, "Look, we're going to send you back home to the Seychelles." I said, "I can't." I said, "My family is very poor. I got a scholarship to study. I want to make something in life for myself and my family. Please don't send me back home." So they said, what are we going to do with you?" I said, "I don't know. You need to let me know." Right. So the British government gave me a scholarship to study at the Brighton College of Technology at that time because I had a sister who was living in Brighton, but she didn't know. She didn't know I was still alive.
Oh boy!
So from Brize Norton in London.
So did your whole family think that you?
That's right. Yeah, they had lost hope because you know because the war, the bombardment, and everything what they heard. But
oh gosh, when she got that call, look, I kind of cried.
No, there was no call.
No
there
call.
was no call.
Just showed up.
I'm going to show you what happened because you know I was young and I memorized everything. I mean, I had the address of my sister because my sister said I live in Hove, which is next to Brighton.
Right. I know Hove.
And she said 23rd Avenue, something like that, in Hove. 26th or 23rd Avenue, but anyway, I forgot it. But I could memorize that. So when the British Army officers asked me, "Where will you go?" So I said, "I've got a sister there, but I've got no address, no telephone number." But I told them, I said, "Look, if you give me the money and you explain to me how to take the train from Brize Norton, you know, on the underground to go to Victoria Station to go to Brighton," I said, "Please give me the money. I will get there. I promise you, I will not get lost." And I was very positive about it, you know. So they gave me some money. Then they gave me a phone number. They said, "Okay, if you get lost, please let us know." You know, I took a tube. I arrived at the Victoria Station. Well, different tubes, you know. Victoria Station. From Victoria Station, I took a train. I arrived in Brighton. When I arrived in Brighton, I asked a police officer, "Do you know this number, the street, the where the house is situated?" The police said, "But it's only about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from here." But he said, "You cannot get there because you don't know. So why don't you take a taxi? It won't cost you a lot of money, very cheap." So I took a taxi and I got there. But it was 11:30 to 12 in the middle of the night. And I rang the doorbell because my sister was living on the 7th story. It was a small bed sitter. I rang the doorbell and the landlady came out. And she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "My name is Flavien Joubert. I'm the brother of Mary. Mary, my sister, stays here." She says, "Get out. Flavien Joubert is dead. Flavien Joubert is dead in Cyprus. Get out. I'm going to call the police." So fortunately, when I got off the taxi, when I paid the taxi, I realized I had some money left. I can still remember, just not very far from my sister's house, there was a little hotel which was called, I think it was called Dudley Hotel, something like that, not very far. In a room, bed and breakfast at that time, it was £5.50. So I checked. Yeah, I had about 7 to 8 pounds with me. So I told the lady, I said, please just tell my sister that I'll be there tomorrow morning.
I can't believe she wouldn't let you up.
So, and what happened, I left, I went to the hotel. When they looked at me, they said, it looks as if you come from a war zone. Because my clothes, and I looked at them and said, it's okay. So I went to the room, I had a shower, I ordered a sandwich, and I slept. And the next morning I woke up at 6 a.m. I just walked up. You know, I was outside and I could hear the scream. My sister was screaming at the landlady, and she was crying because she was working at Marks and Spencer at that time in Brighton. Mm-hmm. So she didn't go to work. So she was waiting for me. So I arrived and she looked at me, you know. So that now, now they started contacting the Seychelles, you know, and the British government organized for me to go to college, you know, and I completed my studies, and I came back to the Seychelles, and I went back again, you know, and
That is such an incredible story. That's amazing that your parents just... when they must have heard. Sorry. I'm a little emotional because I am just that way. What an amazing story. What a way to have, even before you were 20 practically, to have lived a full life. And so did you want to spend any time at hotels or in London or work in London?
No. What happened when I completed my studies at the Brighton College, I went to work at the Redhill Hotel in Richmond. The Redhill Hotel is near the park, near Richmond Park, at the Redhill Hotel. And I worked in a hotel called the Dudley Hotel. That Dudley Hotel was Tresthouses Forte at that time. I don't know what it is now. Tresthouses Forte. Yeah. And then I worked in a small hotel in before you reach Crawley. There's a Crawley. Between Brighton and London, I worked in a small hotel there for a short while. But then I did a lot of part-time work because I had 3 part-time jobs when I was in college in Brighton. I used to wake up in the morning. I used to go and wash plates and, you know, whatever needed to be done in different hotels, you know, along the Brighton pier. Right. And then in the evening, I used to sell petrol in a petrol station, you know. And then after that, between 10 o'clock, I used to go to work in different bars, different discotheques, and just wash as a glass washer. Mm-hmm. So I was earning 3 times of pocket money, and I used to send money home for my parents. Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. I went to university and I think, it was so difficult. I had to study. Yeah. You know, I didn't work. Yeah. I didn't do anything except study. Yeah. It's so hard. And you know, you realize that the humans can really do many things at the same time and to be very, very successful. I praise you on all of that. It was fantastic.
Because I used to sleep about 5 hours, and that was enough, you know. And what was very good as well, each hotel that I worked in the morning, actually, because I was a plate washer. I used to wash plates and casseroles and pots and everything. Most of the time, the chefs and the sous chef liked me. I had a huge afro at that time. I think if you look at the internet, I think I still have it, you know. I had a huge afro, and my hair was reddish afro. And at that time, there was this film about Bruce Lee and Jim Kelly. They used to call me Jim Kelly.
Oh my God, I love
it. You know, and that was very good because I used to do karate. You know, I used to do karate. I was in a karate club in Brighton, you know, and I did karate for
because it was late 70s. 6 years. It was that time.
Late 70s. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the chefs used to like me. So what they used to do, they used to say, okay, Flav, they used to call me Flav or Jim Kelly. They said, look, when you finish, before you go to school, make as much sandwiches as you can to take with you to the school, and then for you to have it for breakfast, you know. So one day, there was a chef from Switzerland, and he liked me very much. He said, look, why don't you make a lot of sandwiches and sell it to your friends, and then you get some pocket money. So you get some pocket money from us. I said, chef, can I do that? He said, yeah, I will give you a paper. So when you go out, you give it to the security officer to say that this is your sandwiches, you know. So every day I used to make about 10, 12 sandwiches. And I used to take orders from my friends at the school. I used to deliver. But that was very good. But I had a wonderful life in England, you know. I mean, the only reason I came was because my parents, you know, they wanted to see me.
Of course.
Because I had never, I never returned to Seychelles during the time that I was away. So, I mean, I could not afford it as well, you know. So, but
and
my
I guess
sister,
when you came back, it was right at the boom when Seychelles
that's
was
right.
becoming a tourist destination.
Yeah, that's right.
That's nice.
But what happened? I started work in the Seychelles, but I didn't stay, and I left Seychelles. Because once you've lived abroad, you when you return when you are young, you find Seychelles a bit too small. So I was a little bit confined. So I went to work in Singapore. I was a teacher in Singapore. I went to work in Malawi. I went to work in Kenya.
With Dr. Banda, you were.
That's right. Yeah.
I have some friends from Malawi who were there during that time.
Yeah. And I went to work in Singapore. I went to work in Malawi. I went to work in Kenya. I went to work in Mauritius. Then I got another scholarship for me to do my higher level degrees in Germany. So I spent about 3 years in Germany. I started in Kiel. I started in Saarbrücken, next to the French border. Then I moved to Frankfurt. Then from Frankfurt, I moved to Kiel, which is in the north, not very far from Denmark. Then from there, I moved to Cologne, and then I stayed in Cologne until I was I graduated. Then I came back to the Seychelles, and when I came back, actually, I started as an assistant director of the French hotel school. And then I was promoted to director. And then I stayed, like I said, for a while. And then they wanted to make some changes. And for me, it was not to my likings. So I decided to go into business. Well, not to go into business, to work in a private business. There was a company, actually, it was a family. They had a lot of money. They came to the Seychelles. They wanted to build 2 luxury hotels. And they were looking for a partner, like a consultant. So a friend of mine actually was contacted. He's an architect. So he contacted me. And then I met the owners. So I went to Praslin and we started together. I mean, when we started the project, there was no house. There was nothing. So there was a very big, like a big hangar. And the owners, the families, even myself, we all stayed together. So we actually build the business together, live together, know each other, and the business, I stayed there for about 12 years, and the business is very successful, very, very successful. Then the government actually called me and said, look, can you come and help us? So I said, no problem. It's a big sacrifice from being a general manager, in terms of salary-wise.
Right.
So I made a huge sacrifice. I mean, I took a very big salary cut from, but I wanted to help. I wanted to motivate the youngsters of the Seychelles to see, look, in life there's a lot, and you down today, you will be up tomorrow. You down tomorrow, you'll be again. You'll be up.
Well, your story is so inspirational. I mean, they must look up to all the students,
they appreciate what I try to do. But now I'm going to tell you about the cocktail book.
Yes, let's. Because, it's funny, when I Googled Seychelles Cocktails, I wasn't expecting to see a whole book on Seychelles Cocktails. I thought there'd be, obviously Raffles has their Raffles Praslin, and they're famous for their Singapore slang, so they have one. So I thought, okay, there's that. But a whole book, and from someone who was a general manager of a hotel. So tell me, how did you mix the being the head of the hotel with cocktails? Did you always have a love of cocktails? Did you feel pride about Seychelles cocktails themselves? So, talk me through that journey.
Okay, what happened is, on Praslin, because Praslin is very small as well. Now, being a general manager on Praslin, once the business is settled, because the business is booming on Praslin.
Right.
You as a GM, what do you have to do? Not much. Because you have all your departmental managers. So you wake up in the morning, you have your meetings, your briefings, and then what? You meet some of your guests. And then in the afternoon, because you have a food and beverage manager who checks the restaurant and everything, you have the front office manager, you have the housekeeper, you have the maintenance engineer, you have everybody. I mean, you need to take care of the finances and to ensure that everything is fine. So after I had been working on Praslin for about 5 years, I said, look, I must put some of my experience into practice. So the first thing, I wrote a cookery book. It came out in 2000. It was printed in France, but I don't have a copy. It's called Exotic Seafood Recipes from the Seychelles.
Is this, now, were you always a cook? Did you love to cook?
What I had to do,
or is this part of your schooling?
Part of my schooling, yeah. Part of my schooling and part of my job, because what happened is when you are studying to become a manager, you have to do housekeeping, you have to do kitchen, pastry, a restaurant and bar, you have to do sommellerie, you have to do everything. So it's all part, So what happened? I wrote the cookery book. It was printed and then it was sold. I think I don't even have a copy here, So, but anyway, it's there. But I think if you Google, I think it is Exotic Seafood Recipes from the Seychelles,
Right.
Or if you Google Flavien Joubert, I think you will, But anyway, so that was that, and then in Seychelles. During the southeast monsoon, it rains a lot, and there's a lot of wind as well. And on Praslin, because our hotels are near the sea, so when it rains, this is when I have the hardest time with my clients, because apart from television, apart from snooker, these kind of things, a massage, wellness and spa, there's not much for you to do. Because
I know, I've lived it for 2 days.
Exactly.
I saw it, Raffles.
You see. So one day, I told the duty manager, I said, look, I'm going to organize a cocktail competition, guest among guests. So we used to have our management cocktail party every Monday. And every Monday I would say, welcome to the new guest. Thank you for the ones who have been there when we had the last one. And try to explain to them what we're going to do this week. Because every night we had a theme, Chinese, Indian, So I announced that I was going to organize this cocktail. And I said, look, the judges will be the guests themselves. So we started with about 12 guests, And to start with, it was a mess. There was no criteria. It was a mess. So, but anyway, we started it, but then we found that it was excellent. So then I told the guests, I said, I am going to take part as a GM as well. Whoever, if for example a guest cocktail is better than mine, then I will give you 2 cocktails every day, one for you and one for your partner, So I had to be competitive. So this is when I actually started mixing non-alcoholic cocktails, alcoholic cocktails, and then taking part in the competition, but writing my own, And then I realized, well, apart from taking part in the competition, why don't I write a cocktail book, try the cocktails on my guest?
So, and how was it?
For example, for you to get one cocktail right, you need to try it at least 4, 5, or even 6 times, because not all the palates are the same, So I started with the non-alcoholic cocktails first, because there's a trend now, non-alcoholic cocktails, So every night I was on the bar, and from 6:30.
The guests must have loved it.
Oh,
they must have
they used to
loved
take photographs and everything, The GM in a tie on the bar. I used to call it the GM's night. So between 6:30 and 7:30, 1 hour, free cocktails, but cocktails made by the GM himself, and you taste it. And we start. It was then the trend became like a must do, because even there was no rain, the guests expected that the GM.
Right.
You see, so I continued, and then I think I've got about 100 and something cocktails. Then I said, then I must do something. So I got somebody to help me with the photograph, with the camera. The person came, and he charged me a lot of money, and the photographs are not very good. So what I did, I bought an expensive photograph and I took my photograph myself. So you will see that some of the photographs they came out, and
So did you find that you had a favorite cocktail that you used to make that would win all the time? So you just kept making that?
No, actually, what happened? The more I made, the more interested I became. So for the non-alcoholic cocktails, actually, I've got about 70. But I think in there's only about 32. The non-alcoholic cocktails were very popular as well, So I cannot say I've got a favorite because I like all of them. So just to show you the photographs, like I said, I took them myself, And so I made the cocktails and I took the photographs. So all these were made on Praslin. The cocktails written on Praslin, tried on my guest in my hotel on Praslin, photographs also taken on Praslin.
And now in those hotels, do they still have the GM, the Flavien Joubert cocktails list?
Well, a lot of hotels bought my cocktail book for the bars. I think they are using some of the,
I hope they give you credit for it. This one was created. Is this when you were at the Coco de Mer or the Black Pearl?
That's right. At the Black Parrot, When I was at the Black Parrot, Black Parrot Hotel,
Oh, I just love it. I love this idea. And did you try and use the local rum or the logo? You're just everything.
Yeah. But what I did not put a brand because I didn't want to, to favor any brand.
Right, of course.
Because I did not ask for sponsorship as well from Cyprus or the others. Because what happened is a good friend of mine, he owns ISPs. Ryla is in London. The lady is here. Her name is Georgina.
Oh, right.
If you Google Ryla, you can meet her in London. But the person who actually sponsored me, he is. It's ISPC. ISPC.
Oh, yeah, there it is. It's right there in the underneath there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay, it's a Belgium company. They own actually a very big supermarket. Supplying food stuff to hotel. And the gentleman is a very good friend of mine. When he saw the idea, he loved the idea. And he said, I want to sponsor.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think every hotel's GM should do this. Because what a way to greet guests.
Exactly, that's right, yeah.
To really, and everyone loves the cocktail. And that's why if you come to the Seychelles, it's kind of, you're going to have the fruity cocktails.
Exactly,
It's just wonderful.
It's all exotic.
Fantastic. I'm sure your parents now must have.
Unfortunately, they both dead now.
But to see you grow from this 15-year-old that they thought didn't do very well in school to have become.
But this is why sometimes when I speak to my students, I tell them all the time, I say, no matter what or who your parents are, please listen to them. Listen to them because I can hear them all the time, in everything I do. Even sometimes, when I have some problems, I have some trouble, I can hear my dad saying, because when I came back, he was so proud, whenever I have a problem or if I'm in a meeting or if I've got a disagreement with some of the, with some of the ministers or some people in high authority, my dad used to say, you just take a step back and breathe and continue. Make as if nothing happens. This is what I do. This is what I do. And of course, I pray a lot. It's not that I'm a fervent Christian, that I go to church all the time. But when I was very young, before I went to Cyprus, I wanted to be a priest. So I spent a lot of time in the church, cleaning the church. And I spent a lot of time as an altar boy as well. Altar boy. So, like I said, it's not that I am, but I care very much about the principles, and I pray a lot, and this also I think helps me,
Well, everything has.
And every day before I come to school, you won't believe that I wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, and every day before I come to school, I will read a verse in the Bible. It's not a question of me taking the Bible and looking. I will just open the Bible. I got a huge Bible like that. Just open and see how I feel. And I just read a verse and then ask for the strength for me to get through the day, you know, and this is what I do.
It was wonderful to have Flavien on the show, and I'm extremely grateful to him for sharing his incredible story with us. Flavien makes reference to the war in Cyprus. If you wish to know more, please go to the Best Sips post this week on bestbitsworldwide.com and click the link at the bottom. Next week, we return to London and meet Sam Mitchell, who helms up Gilray's at London's County Hall Hotel. For more information and links to everything you've heard about, plus a bit more, please visit bestbitsworldwide.com. Thanks for listening to Best Sips Worldwide, a spin-off of Best Bits Worldwide. Always remember the wise words of Oscar Wilde: all things in moderation, including moderation, and never drink and drive. Okay, I said that last part. Theme music is by Steven Shapiro and used with permission. You'll find me at the bar.